Yes, a very warm welcome to you and thank you for joining us on Health and Wellness. My name is Zaitun Ali, and on today's episode we want to discuss about infertility. So general infertility is actually not being able to conceive after 12 months or so or more of unprotected sex, you know. And then now we are going to delve deeper upon this issue and this matter, getting to know how this occurs. Is it a medical issue? Is it a personal issue? And we'll also get to debunk the myths around it. And joining me right here in studio, I have Dr. Shaunak Kandwala. He's a clinical director IVF from Fertility Point Kenya. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
I also have Dr. Rajesh. Allow me just to mention the first name. He'll talk about his second name, the pronunciation behind it. Dr. Rajesh is consultant, IVF consultant for Fertility Point Kenya. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And the second name being?
I'm Dr. Rajesh Chaudhary.
Hata nyinyi hamjaisikia. I know it, but yeah. So thank you so much for coming to the show. And even as we're laying basis upon our topic of the day, let me throw it to you, Dr. Shaunak. Could you now explain to us what infertility is?
So as you were saying just now, infertility is when a couple is staying together and having unprotected sex frequently and still not able to conceive for at least when they are 12 months together or 1 year together. Or if the woman is 35 years or more, then even 6 months of staying together with unprotected sex with no conception is considered infertility. And infertility, there are two classifications of infertility. There is primary infertility, where neither of the partners have had any pregnancy before.
Okay.
The male has not been able to conceive, get a woman pregnant, or the woman herself has not got pregnant. And secondary infertility is when one of them has got pregnant, has got a pregnancy achieved, like a male has got a pregnancy achieved, a woman has got pregnant, but then finds it difficult to get pregnant again. So this could mean even if she has had a miscarriage or an ectopic pregnancy or anything else, and they're not able to conceive, that is secondary infertility.
Okay. I really never get the fact that age and fertility, 35 years to be specific, ladies want to know why. Does it have to be 35? But could you just explain to us more?
So, when a female child is born, there are some 4 million eggs in her ovaries. By the time she comes to puberty, it's around 400,000. And by the time she ovulates around 40,000 eggs. She could ovulate 40,000 eggs during her menstrual lifetime up to menopause. Okay, but of course that's the reserve, that's the ovarian reserve. So when a woman becomes 35 and more and starts going towards 40 and then still above, the ovarian reserve or the number of eggs that are there in the ovary, they go down. And of course then there is not only a decrease in the quantity of the eggs but also the quality of the eggs. So the eggs that come after 35 may not be as good as when they come at 25 to 30. So that's when we do IVF and we stimulate these women's ovaries with injections to produce multiple eggs, not just one egg. That time the quality of the abnormal eggs is higher in proportion in our elderly woman. Elderly I consider as 35 or even close to 40. Then somebody who's at 30 or still lower, like between 25 and 30, they would have only 10 or 15% of their eggs abnormal, whereas the elderly lady would have almost 40 to 50% of her eggs which are abnormal. So that's how the fertilization potential also goes down. Even in IVF, we find success rates going down when we use their own eggs for the elderly women.
Okay. And IVF is part of now as we're talking about this topic, recent advances in management of infertility, and we'll get to IVF as well. But Dr. Rajesh, could you even mention about, it is not only the women who are susceptible to infertility, but also the men. Could you explain further?
Yeah, even men contributes in infertility, and it's almost 50%. So if we distribute the cause of infertility, it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 being the reason for the female, 1/3 goes to the main reason, and 1/3 is still unexplained.
Okay.
So the major cause of infertility in men are because of some anatomical disruptions like varicoceles or previous surgeries on the testes, or some childhood infections like mumps, which can disrupt the process of spermatogenesis, or even the genetic cause. So this can lead to men infertility.
Okay, and you can go further also explaining more about what causes infertility.
What causes infertility in men?
In both.
So in men, what I explained now, these are the main cause of the infertility. And some lifestyle causes can be there, like obesities and some hormonal disruptors, some medications like antidepressant medicines or antihypertensive medicines. They can lead to a decrease in sperms.
Okay.
And in female, mostly it is related to the uterus, or say fallopian tubes, or infections, some ovulatory disorders.
It's actually more of the blockage of the fallopian tube. Is it that?
Yeah, because of the infections.
Okay. 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 Thank you, Dr. Dr. Shonak, over to you in terms of some of the myths people need to know and debunk on this matter of infertility. What are they?
So actually the thing is that people don't understand that the extent of infertility today in our population. So if you consider the population of childbearing age today, 1 in 5 couples would have infertility to some extent. So it can be primary, secondary, or it can be relative. Relative infertility is another class of infertility which I didn't touch upon.
Okay.
Is when this woman can conceive. She conceives but goes on having miscarriages. So there is this class of women or patients who have recurrent pregnancy losses or miscarriages.
That's termed as infertility as well?
That's a relative infertility. It's not an absolute infertility. It's a relative because they cannot carry it to term, you see. So you cannot have a live birth. So they can miscarry at the first trimester. First trimester is before 12 weeks. Or they can do it at around 20-24 weeks. So, there are various causes for these recurrent pregnancy losses. And recurrent pregnancy loss also forms one of the indication to do IVF. Because when we do IVF, we monitor her very well. We check for everything. And then we treat for those things also.
So even if
recurrent pregnancy losses,
even if it's brought about by high blood pressure and such things, so you can also
high blood pressure, like pregnancy-induced hypertension, or what pregnancy
even pre-eclampsia,
toxemia, or as you are saying, pre-eclampsia. So that will be managed by the obstetrician. So our job is up to 12 weeks. As an IVF specialist, we look after the patient up to 12 weeks, and then we hand them over to, depending upon they want to go to a obstetrician, a routine obstetric gynec if the pregnancy is straightforward, or they can go to a specialized fetal medicine person who is also an obstetrician and who looks after other things concerned with the fetus and the mother. So these are the things.
And Dr.
And you are saying about the myths. Many people feel that when we go for IVF or we go for insemination, we may not get our, my own sperm. Maybe they'll use a donor sperm to inseminate. And how are they achieving pregnancies in IVF? We don't know what they are doing in the, there's a lot of misconception about that. So we need to correct that, because we need to, that's why we give a lot of knowledge in our social media and all that. Through social media handles and all, we give a lot of knowledge about what we do from IUI to IVF, that how we counsel the patient. We have genetic and psychological counselors also for the patient. So they know exactly what they are coming in for. And it's not that we are using anybody's sperms and anybody's eggs to make embryos and give them, unless the patient consents. So that's a different topic altogether, which is called third party reproduction, where you use donor eggs or donor sperms or even donor embryo to give this couple because they don't have their own.
And even before we come now to that treatment method that you were talking about, the IVF, Dr. Rajesh, are there ways that we can even prevent this sort of infertility in women and even in men? What should we look at to avoid it?
The prevention for infertility, most of the infertility there goes as symptoms. they are not. There may not be any symptoms that anyone can know that I'm infertile unless they try for the pregnancy or go for the fertility testing.
Yeah.
But there are some instances where we can know that there could be a potential infertility cases, like if there is a very irregular cycles in women, which can denote that there may be ovulatory problem or some fibroids. If there is a chronic pelvic pain, that can imply that there could be a endometriosis or some kind of infection leading to fallopian tube blockage. In men, mostly when there is a micropenile, the size of the penis when it is too short, that could denote some genetic causes, or if the size of the testis is very small.
Okay.
And obesity, lifestyles, smoking habit, drinking habit. So these are the causes of infertility. So for prevention, one should abstain from all these things.
Yeah.
Have a proper lifestyles, prevent obesities, and unwanted pregnancy. Like if you are not looking for pregnancy, and if you are not willing to carry out, then it's better not to get pregnant, because you will go for the abortion, and then that can lead to infertility as well.
Okay.
Because unsafe abortion can lead to infection. Again, the womb lining can get disturbed, or even that can lead to the fallopian tube infection.
Okay.
So these are the things.
You were talking about the testing. No, even before the testing, genetic. So is it something that is genetic? Do we get it from our lineage somewhere, or does it just come about as individuals?
No, few genetics it can be hereditary, like someone can inherit from their parents. Few can be spontaneous, like sporadic cases, like there can be mutations in the later in the life leading to the infertility. So for instance, in testis there are more than 2,000 genes that those are responsible for spermatogenesis. So later in the life there can be a mutation which can disturb those particular genes and can lead to agiospermia or low sperm count. So there may be an instance where a man is fertile, is a father of child, and later on they may find that their sperms are low.
Oh.
So this could be that mutation or some lifestyle changes.
And in cases of low sperm count, so what brings this about?
Low sperm counts, now there is a global decline in the count. What our forefather used to have the count, now that is totally decreased by 50%. This could be because of the environmental factors or some plastics. The plastics with the nanoparticles, they are now everywhere, including in brain and in testes as well. So they all affect the functioning of those organs.
Oh.
So obesity, when there is a obesity in men, that can lead to low testosterone, again leading to low sperm count.
For them, they don't have like an age limit. Like for ours, it's been given 35 as like the standard.
No, even men has a biological clock.
Oh, they
even
do?
Men experience andropause. But women can have a menopause, men can have a andropause.
Oh, andropause. Do they have the same symptoms as us?
Actually, the sperm count may remain the same.
Yeah.
As he was touching on, the sperm counts have been reducing, right? So when we were medical students, the sperm parameters were totally different from what they are now. That time 40 million and above was considered normal, sperm count. Today 15 million is considered normal. So they have downgraded the sperm counts, sperm motility and everything, the WHO.
Yeah.
So the new criteria are like this. So if I have 15 million or more, I am considered normal. Less than 15 million, subfertile. So like that.
Okay.
But earlier 40 million used to be considered normal. Anything below 40. So if that criteria applied today, everybody would be subnormal.
And will it decrease further?
Yeah, it's going on decreasing. And as you said, age does matter with men's sperms also, because there is something called DNA fragmentation, which occurs within the sperm body. So if that DNA fragmentation is there, these sperms are useless, Means they may fertilize, they may get a lady pregnant, but that she may end up in a miscarriage early on. So, or it may be an abnormal child. So DNA fragmentation of the man is very important. And in Kenyan context, we should also talk about, as you were saying, mentioning the various vices. One of them is chewing mira. So mira chewing or similar herb that has come now, chewing that, a lot of the Somali population and some population in some part of Kenya, they chew mira. Drastically reduction in sperm counts. Like, we get Somali men or some, I don't want to attribute it Somali only, but such men we get who have got only 5 to 6 million count. So then you have to go for ICSI or a part of IVF, it is called. So you have to go there because even if the woman is normal, this sperm count is no longer going to normally get pregnant.
An abnormal baby. It can lead to an abnormal baby.
Sometimes. It depends upon how much is the DNA fragmentation. Yeah.
So now the baby comes out like with what kind of conditions and problems?
No, it depends upon how the chromosomal anomaly has acted. Because chromosomal anomalies are, there are 22 pairs of chromosomes and 1 pair of sex chromosomes. So there's 46XY is the male and 46XX is the female.
I can't even remember my biology.
Yeah, 46XX. So the Y sperm comes from the man, right? So if there is any deletion, like there is something called micro deletion from the man's side, then the progeny, that is if it's a male child, that child could also be infertile when he grows up.
I know.
Yeah. So you see, it carries on to like
the next
generation. It is the inheritance, what you get. So you just don't get money in inheritance, you also get these diseases in your inheritance.
So if I want to be very aware and clear about my next generation, how do you go for this testing? So
it's a very elaborate process. It comes under what is called as PGT. PGT stands for preconceptional genetic testing. So these are of different types of PGTs. So if you want to say, let's say you have or you are a sickle cell, sickle cell disease.
Yes.
You are a carrier, and there is somebody, you are married to a husband who's free of sickle cell, or he's also a carrier, for example. Then your 50% of your kids would be normal and the other would be carriers. So in that case, you would have to do something called PGT. For PGT, you have to do IVF. Also, if you want to know whether you are going to, let's say you have 2 girls and now you want a boy. So even for family balancing, you would do PGT. Because it tells you the XY, right? Along with the chromosomal analysis. So you know whether this is a girl or a boy when you do PGT. So what you do is you do IVF, you fertilize the eggs. I think we are going too ahead, but I'm just telling you. Make the embryos and then you do you do the biopsy. We do it in our lab and then we send it to a genetic lab and then they analyze that and they send us the report.
So again, the PGT you said in full, what does it mean?
Preconceptional genetic testing.
Preconceptional genetic testing.
Preconceptional means before the conception takes place. Genetic, that is a testing of the biopsy of the embryo.
And this can also tell if
if you're carrying a particular disease,
sickle
if that
cell
embryo has got a particular like sickle cell. So it's called PGT-A. A stands for aneuploidy. So if there's a chromosomal anomaly or abnormality, then it's an aneuploid embryo. It cannot be transferred into the uterus. Only euploid or normal embryos can be transferred. It also tells you XX, XY. So if you want a boy, I put XY embryo into your uterus.
Is it invasive?
Sorry?
Is it invasive?
Not really. Because the process of genetic testing is to a certain extent minimally invasive because you have to make a small hole with a laser in the embryo. That's our embryologists do that in the lab, and then they introduce something and they suck out one small cell from inside, and then they send it for testing. So it's minimally invasive, and then the hole heals on its own or it closes down, and then the embryo is as good as new. And then we get the result, and then you put the desired embryo inside the normal embryo. And like for sickle cell, you do what is called as PGT-M. So M stands for monogenic, means for a specific disease. So that's a little more expensive test. So if a couple is carrying that disease and they want to test out the embryo for that, we do that also in our place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Rajesh, we're even talking about the advances that are currently in place for managing infertility. So probably mention, I know we are going to dive deeper into them after the break, but you can just mention, to just lay a foundation about it.
So in terms of the advancement in infertility treatment, there's different sectors.
Yes.
Like in terms of selecting the embryos, we have now advancement in selecting a better embryos through a time lapse, where the embryos are continuously being watched, and then there is a scoring system there, where a particular embryos are given a scoring. Which embryos are best for the transfer. So the embryo selection, there are advancement in embryo selections, there are advancement in the hormonal treatment, there are advancement in the, even the uterus transplant is there now, where if someone is not born with a uterus, like MRK syndrome or hysterectomy for whatever reasons, then there are quite a number of babies born through the uterine transplant. Okay. Then there is the role of artificial intelligence, in where the data from the thousands of cases are being put, and then the inference are being drawn. And so for a particular patient, that AI is giving you advice what treatment protocol will be best for her. Oh. So these are all the, now it's going on.
Okay.
And maybe in next decade we'll have a AI-powered IVF centers.
AI is everywhere, and I love to see it in the health sector as well. And even after the break, we are coming back with more about IVF. They'll get to explain to us what IVF means and how these advances are currently working. I also want to give a shout out to Lugo Collections. Find them on Instagram and Facebook for this amazing feat. They actually ensure I look amazing and bespoke each and every Sunday. So at Lugo Collection on Instagram and Facebook for suits, both ladies and gentlemen. So we're taking a short commercial break. We're coming back with more. This is Health and Wellness.